At its center stands the Khwarazmian Empire, ruled by Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II, a restless monarch eager to prove his power. His empire is immense and wealthy, but beneath the surface, deadly cracks are spreading. He faced rebellious governors, overtaxed farmers, and a fragile hold on cities that burned with ambition of their own. Far to the east, another power was rising from the windswept steppes of Mongolia. Genghis Khan had forged an army like none the world had ever seen. His warriors rode with the speed of a storm, disciplined, ruthless, and absolutely loyal. They had already toppled kingdoms in China and Central Asia. Now, Genghis turned his gaze westward. He did not come at first as a conqueror, but surprisingly as a merchant, sending caravans and envoys to Persia in search of trade and friendship. Genghis Khan quickly forged ties with Shah Muhammad II, recognizing him as a ruler of formidable power. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent forth a massive caravan of 450 merchants. They carried goods, as well as a letter, a message of friendship, trade, and potential alliance. But at the frontier city of Otrar, Governor Inalchuk's eyes burned not with diplomacy, but with sheer greed. Accusing the travelers of espionage, he seized them and took their goods. Enraged, but still restrained, Genghis Khan sent ambassadors demanding justice. The Shah not only refused, but committed the unthinkable. He killed the entire Mongol envoy, sending their mutilated remains back to the Khan. When the news of the Otrar incident reached Genghis Khan, he decided to control his initial anger and made one last attempt to gain satisfaction through diplomacy. He sent a final envoy to request the surrender of Inalchuk. Shah Muhammad, however, refused to surrender Inalchuk because most of the leaders of the Khwarazmian army were his relatives. In a final disastrous move, Shah Muhammad not only rejected Genghis Khan's request, but also executed the Muslim envoy who had traveled to Samarkand, the capital of the Khwarazmian Empire. To Genghis Khan, this was the ultimate insult, a clear declaration of war. He immediately began preparing his army for a massive invasion. Muhammad II was completely unprepared for the storm that was coming. In a single year, he desperately collected taxes 3 times from his already struggling people, stirring anger and unrest that simmered beneath the surface across his domain. He finally gathered his commanders for a war council. Hardened generals insisted on a unified defense, urging the Shah to let the Mongols come to Transoxiana, an area where the Khwarazmians were familiar and where they perhaps could gain a tactical advantage. But the Shah was deaf to their counsel. Instead of uniting his armies into a single, overwhelming, crushing force, he committed a fatal strategic error. He scattered them across the empire, guarding cities one by one. With his forces dangerously divided, he abandoned the heart of his realm and withdrew to Balkh, leaving the fertile lands of Persia terrifyingly vulnerable to the thunder of hoofs that drew ever closer. In September 1219, Genghis Khan marched into Shah Muhammad's territory and carefully divided his army into 3 powerful contingents. He entrusted his sons Ogedei and Chagatai with the arduous siege of Otrar. He dispatched Jochi to subdue the cities along the Sir-Darya River, and with his youngest son Tului at his side, he personally led the main force toward Bukhara. For 5 grueling months, the Mongols besieged the walls of Otrar. Eventually, a shocking betrayal from within opened the gates, and the city fell. Governor Inalchuk was captured and brutally executed, and Otrar was swiftly reduced to ruins. With this critical victory, the path into the Khwarazmian heartland lay wide open. In 1220, Genghis Khan attacked Bukhara with the main forces of his army. Shah Muhammad was caught completely unawares. He had miscalculated, anticipating that Genghis would attack Samarkand first, which is where he had stationed his main field army. Back at Bukhara, only the garrison stood against the furious Mongol assault. The Khan faced strong initial resistance from the defenders, but this resistance did not last long, and the city fell in less than 2 weeks. After capturing Bukhara, the Mongol invaders killed thousands of unarmed and defenseless citizens and took the rest as slaves. They then immediately took the road to Samarkand. Shah Muhammad had previously placed great importance on the defense of Samarkand, amassing a large, formidable force within its walls and overseeing the intensive repair of its fortifications. Around 50,000 soldiers were stationed in the city to protect it. The siege began with the Mongols swiftly encircling the city, cutting off all supplies and communication. Genghis Khan employed his usual combination of psychological warfare and tactical deception. He ordered his artillery and archers to continuously pressure the walls. Inside the massive castle, the Khwarazmian commanders resolved on one desperate gamble. The Khwarazmian cavalry rode out to meet the Mongols. Alongside them were fearsome war elephants clad in heavy armor. At first, it seemed the Mongols broke rank, their riders scattered in disarray. The defenders gave chase, believing victory was within their grasp. But this was a trap. The Mongols were drawing them away from the safety of the castle walls. Once out of the range of the archers on the castle walls, the Mongols suddenly turned and charged. The Mongol forces gained the immediate advantage and began to ruthlessly cut off the Khwarazmian cavalry. From on the walls, the horrified people of Samarkand watched their last hope vanish into dust and blood. The noble charge had been utterly annihilated by the Mongols, with most of the Khwarazmian cavalry being killed. Fear swept like a plague through the streets. Mercenaries laid down their arms, and some even joined the enemy. Within days, the mighty city, once the jewel of Transoxiana, surrendered to Genghis Khan. Genghis's army entered the city and massacred the people. Only the most loyal made a final, doomed stand. After the attack, the city of Samarkand became a ruin and was deserted. Following Samarkand's fall, Genghis Khan directed his armies deeper into Khwarazmian territory. His generals Subutai and Jebe led campaigns into Persia with shocking speed and ruthlessness. Cities that resisted were razed to the ground, their populations massacred, and survivors enslaved. This terror campaign not only crippled Persian military resistance, but also spread fear across the entire region, prompting some cities to surrender without a fight. The Shah Muhammad II, in an act of ultimate betrayal, fled westward rather than confront the Mongols directly, abandoning his people and fracturing the empire's defensive coherence. Genghis Khan dispatched his two most feared generals, Subutai and Jebe, on a relentless pursuit across Persia to hunt him down. This chase became one of the most famous cavalry expeditions in all of history, stretching thousands of miles. Exhausted and utterly broken, Muhammad eventually reached a small, obscure island in the Caspian Sea. There, stripped of his power, deserted by most of his followers, and suffering from illness, he died in December 1220. By the time of his death, the Khwarazmian state had effectively disintegrated. His son, Jalal attempted to rally resistance, but his heroic efforts were sporadic and consistently overwhelmed by the Mongols' superior organization and tactical flexibility. Cities such as Nishapur, Herat, Merv, and later Ray suffered truly catastrophic destruction. Entire populations were annihilated in acts of retribution meant both to punish resistance and to serve as stark warnings to others. Agricultural lands were devastated, vital irrigation systems were ruined, and once thriving urban centers were depopulated. The Persian cultural and intellectual landscape, once among the most vibrant in the Islamic world, entered a prolonged period of decline under the shadow of Mongol conquest.